Okay. I'll start with the easy thing. There's the bag truck right behind you. Many, many years of that being on the bash. What's the sort of significance of it?
The significance of the bag truck, well, especially out here in Inaminka, there's no accommodation, so it's as simple as that. So if you don't bring a swag, you're going to have a pretty cold night standing up somewhere. So, yeah, and we've run the bag truck's been there since day one. In 33 years, there's always been a bag truck. We've currently run it, we've run it since 1993. I've driven it for about 15, 16 years now. And it's just a very important part of the event because, as I say, we cart on these days a lot of fun stuff, water, Billy's puts his pies on there, so all in all, and lots of tyres, and this year have been very beneficial because we've done quite a few tyres, so there's a big need.
The 30 years, I mean, that's significant. You've done yourself.
Yeah.
Talk about that. So how do you sort of, I don't know, talk, like wrap that into a few sentences? It's pretty big deal.
Pretty hard to do that, Paul.
No.
But yeah, it's been a big part of my life. Variety's been a big part of my life. So we started just as bashers, it doesn't sound quite right. We started as bashers and definitely got basher's throat this morning. Had no idea of the significance of what the bash and variety was all about. It was only that a very good mate of mine, John Wicks, introduced me in about 91 to a Christmas party down the bay for about 300 children, and the rest is history. And in Variety today, we've got that same Christmas party still running with 2,500 people or carers turning up at the showground. So, it's just another part of what Variety does and how I originally got involved. Not long after that, I ran the bash for 6 years, so that really got me involved, and I've sat on the board for nearly as long as I've been bashing, so pretty good.
You're a very busy man, successful business. How does it all work in your actual life? And you put a lot in. I mean, this costs money.
Well, that's part of it, and once again, Paul, it's that you go back to when we went to that first Christmas party, and I saw and realised that there was a need, and there's still the need's getting greater. We'll never be able to raise enough dollars to look after special kids, and the good part about this event, and the good part about Variety, of course, is that the money we're raising on this event and the money that Variety raises this year, we will spend next year in South Australia on a numerous amount of children from all sorts of backgrounds that have a need to be supported.
There's a lot of corporate companies, business people, what's philanthropy mean to you?
Oh, well, it means there is a need, and yes, you're right, there are so many businesses that, are contributing every year to the bash, but just to Variety as well, and it's an enormous need. As I said to you, we will never get enough money, but it's, it's just, as you say, it's part of my life, it's part of what I've done, and yes, I have been successful, been very lucky. And I'm able now and have been able to give back some of what I've been earning, and I'm very happy to do that. It makes you feel good, obviously, but as I say, there's a need. I can see the need, and step forward and try and do my best.
Perfect. In terms of that 30 years, and I think what I was trying to say before too, the answer was perfect, but I mean, there's so many different aspects to it. I mean, you've covered the most important aspect, which is raising money for kids. But you have these highlights, I'm sure. I mean, funny people, places that you hadn't been before. I mean, are there a couple of things that you recall if you're really just thinking over that 30 years, well, that was a highlight, that was a highlight, was it too hard?
not too hard. There's so many, and I just off the top now to spring some out. But stupid things. I mean, the first year, I mean, how long we got, we built a Studebaker with different sides. My company was on one side and another bloke's company on another side. Some Victorian coppers came across the border and they were from the Stolen Car group in Victoria as policemen. And we were having quite significant problems with the front end of this thing. At any rate, one morning, a bit like this, we're trying to fix it up. One of these coppers walked up and he said, "Oh, jeepers, you blokes having trouble with that Studebaker." He said, "Funny thing," but he said, "that other Studebaker in the event's having the same problem." And he was serious. Anyway, but those sorts of stories, around a fire and around a beer, you're significantly telling those sorts of yarns all the time. It's funny at the time and you can enjoy a bit of a laugh.
Oh, sorry, have I done too much of it?
No.
You've made some great friends. I mean, think of that for a minute and just talk to me about how that makes you feel.
Oh, sensational. A really good mate of mine, Graham Stevenson, built our first car, worked for me for many years. Would have been 31-year basher this year, but because of COVID he can't come from Queensland. But we're still great mates. Another great mate here that's worked for me, he's got his own business these days. He was top mechanic with me and worked for me for 5 or 10 years. Then branched out on his own, got his own mechanical workshop. We're still together. He's here looking after me because at 74 you need to get a bit of looking after these days, apparently. It's just continuous. So it goes on that you just, you run into somebody, a lot of those pub car blokes that were in the early days, you still see some of those. Unfortunately, some of them aren't with us. But it is, every year, you run into people too that you might not have seen for 12 months, but you continue to keep up with them, you continue to try and support them in many ways. And just the friendships are everlasting. It's something that you experience and you always keep it together.
Last one. Is there a way of just, the kind of role model, or you and some of the 30-year people, I mean, are all looked up to? Obviously your involvement's there right before our very eyes, but it's more than that. It's the work you put into it and all that. But if you try and reaching down and get the virgins to stay, is there sort of a role model spirit? Does that make sense?
Not well with a role model, but it's significant. Had a bloke turn up the other day, and he said, and I was only talking to Tim Evans about this yesterday, and he said to Tim, he said, "You and Cocko," he said, "you put so much into this." He said, "You're just exactly what you're talking about. You inspire other people, see what's going on, and realise, just like I did in 92, 91, that there is a need, but it's such a great event, so well organised. We've really got it down to pat. The organisation, look at this year, how they pulled all this together. Significant costs with marquees and stuff like that in the old days. I mean, they were never there. But today, because this is the expectation that people need a shower and toilet, wasn't in the old days, and they did need some comfort. But the catering, look at the catering people that come out here. All this sort of thing. And you go back to the old glider old bus where they came out. Bunch of blokes came out in the bus and put the meals on, still going on today in a slightly different role. It's a little bit more professional, and we've got more professional. We've had to get more professional, but that's significant because people come out and think, "Jeepers, how good's this? We didn't realise there was anything like this," and it's fantastic. They go home, they tell their friends, and we're still pulling 70, 80 cars, and it hasn't dropped off anytime soon. So thank you very much to Bashers in South Australia, because the kids are significantly benefiting from the dollars, the bucks. The dough that we're going to raise this year is extraordinary.
Perfect. Last one, this is more of your chair pat in your small way. I know I keep saying this the last one. As a tent, 75, wow, we really...
Oh, we punch well above our weight. Well, that's once again, on an international scale. We've won awards as the best tent in the world, those sorts of things. We punch well above our weight, even for Australian tents. We'd be the most significant tent in Australia, good old South Australia. But that comes back to, Paul, not only the monies we've raised, it's the very successful people that sit around. I don't mean success in how they've gone in their job world, but the success, they come from the bash, or they've come out of other events, or they've just joined Variety and added and given Variety exactly what we've needed to be so successful. And it's fantastic to have these bunch of people.
Perfect. Well done, my friend. And congratulations too on the 30 years. Brilliant.